What's good, everybody? It's Clutch Hoops, and today we're going to be talking about all the first round series in the NBA playoffs in 10 minutes. Without further ado, let's get straight to it. I'm going to start off with my favorite series, and that is Sixers Knicks. My first takeaway was that Embiid did not look himself at all. I mean, he was a little bit awkward. You saw him falling a lot. I think he averaged like one trip back to the locker room every game, and man, it was just clearly just something not right with him. He got diagnosed with Bell's palsy midway through the series, and some people noticed his eyes starting to droop and his mouth drooping as well. So obviously, hope for his health. But hey, man, you know how I feel about Joel Embiid. Not my favorite player at all. But let's talk some more positive for the Sixers. I mean, Tyrese Maxey is an absolute dog. I think in that closeout game, or excuse me, game 5, he had 44, if I'm not mistaken. He just put this team on his back and threw some just spamming dribble handoffs at the top of the key, and Embiid just being a little bit passive. They did manage to stretch the series to probably longer than it should have been, considering how close some of these games were. But I I am not disappointed in the Sixers team at all. I think they held up pretty well, considering it was just a tough matchup with the Knicks. For the Knicks, I mean, I was really happy with their performance. Tibbs clearly outcoached Nick Nurse. There were some huge OG minutes, and I believe he had a giant dunk over Embiid in the closeout game, which was pretty nuts. And they were doing some really interesting stuff in terms of matchups for Embiid. They were throwing a lot of Mitchell Robinson and Isaiah Hartenstein, but also his tertiary matchup was OG Anunoby, and that was a really odd sort of mismatch because you have OG's strength and versatility, but at the same time you have that wingspan that sometimes, not a lot of people talk about this, but Embiid struggles to sometimes find the ball when he's in the post and find other people out of the post. Now, I've also really just had a revelation about Isaiah Hartenstein, who's been tremendous in terms of helping on Embiid, and this whole series really just revolved around obviously how the Knicks could defend Embiid. But Jalen Brunson, last point for this game, or the series, excuse me, that man is a straight bucket. 35 and a half a game on the series. He did have a couple quiet games, but he more than made up for it. But man, he just finds ways to score from floaters, on jumpers. He's just so tough, man. And overall, I think the story of this series was offensive rebounding. The Sixers really just got totally out outboarded, out efforted by guys like Josh Hart, whose shooting, by the way, was an absolute revolution for the Knicks. Shout out Josh Hart because he's a game changer. But it really was just offensive rebounding and pace that killed the Sixers in this one. Move on to the next one. Next up, we got Cavs Orlando. I think this was Paolo's coming out party in terms of really the biggest stage, and a lot of people are starting to realize how good Paolo is. I believe he averaged 24, 8, and 4 on the series, and he really just established himself as a really great young player. And I think that's something that Orlando definitely needed. I don't know if he's number one tertiary or secondary or primary, ball handler and scorer. But hey, man, definitely great future ahead of that guy. And the rest of the guys in Orlando, too bad, obviously, they couldn't pull it out. Paulo did have some turnover problems, and so did Franz Wagner. I feel like they both kind of they took turns having off games. And it's just a tough look for the Magic, who've got a lot of solid dudes. They just cannot stretch the floor for their lives. This series I did not watch that much of, to be honest. But hey, man, it went to 7. It was close, right? So you got Jalen Suggs as well from the Orlando Magic, who I did write down, made some huge plays and was a big part in extending the series, how far it was, how far it lasted. But again, another thing I'm noticing about Evan Mobley is he's just kind of an awkward offensive player, and every time I watch him, he just doesn't seem right. He just doesn't fit really in this Cavs offense. Sometimes he's just sort of chilling in the dunker spot, and I don't know. He's just an awkward player. I don't know how else to describe it. He has some difficulty catching sometimes, just catching the ball. Maybe it's bad passes. Maybe I'm just not watching enough film, but drops the ball often. He's kind of an awkward spacer as well. I mean, I remember in game one, I think he went 2 for 4 from three, but since I'm pretty sure he was not on a good streak at all. So there's that. I mean, obviously Donovan Mitchell was incredible in this series, and he definitely gets the series MVP if you're asking me. He averaged damn near 30. Yeah, 30. Man, he's on a heater constantly, and I think they showed a stat on ESPN in the last two closeout games of the series. He now has the record for the most points. So that's pretty cool. It was AI before him. I'm curious. But yeah. Next one we got is the Boston Celtics and the Miami Heat. I watched, I think, 3 games of the series, I think it was. I was pretty sure that, the Celtics were going to be able to pull it out, but I was expecting a Heat win, and I did predict Celtics in 5. Heat, man, in true Heat fashion, they just showed up hitting hitting 23 threes in the one game that they won. They had guys like Haywood Highsmith hitting threes, Jamie Hawkins Jr. down the stretch of the games hitting threes. Talking about that one game because it was really the only competitive one, being honest with ourselves. Boston really was in control the entire time. I thought Jaylen Brown was great this series. All of the big four, big five, whatever you want to say for the Celtics, they were all pretty solid. So there is something to consider that Kristaps Porzingis did pick up I believe it was a quad. I could be wrong. Quad injury. It was a leg injury for sure. So he'll be missing the next, I think, 1 to 2 weeks was the timeline, which is obviously a big loss considering you're about to play the Cleveland Cavaliers in the second round. But the Celtics, man, I trust them, but at the same time, man, I feel so many doubts. I think this is the year they make it to the final and win it, possibly. Obviously, don't quote me on this because that could still change, but I think this is probably the year that Celtics break through. They'll make the finals for sure. I think it's just it's a difficult, really team to put expectations on because it feels like every single year they come up short, they fail. I mean, hey, you beat the Heat handedly, who really only had Tyler Hero, Bam, and Caleb Martin actually surprised me as well. But Celtics have obviously championship aspirations and should be what they're looking for next. Bucks Pacers. That was an interesting one as well, to say the least. I mean, we had a great series from Damian Lillard, in my opinion. Obviously, he had some efficiency problems nearing the last couple games of the series, but man, being without Giannis Antetokounmpo really killed the Bucks. They really, really struggled. They did a decent job, I think, filling in for him in terms of Bobby Portis and Brook Lopez had a lot more shot attempts. They had a bigger shot diet. Chris Middleton as well put up a huge, I think it was game 4 or game 5. I might be wrong, but he hit some huge bank. He hit a bank 3 down the stretch of the game. He hit down the stretch of the game into the fourth, sending to OT. He was pretty huge for the Bucks in terms of showing up when it mattered the most. But it's not enough, man. These Pacers are special. Man, they impressed me so much. I'm so proud that I see Pascal Siakam on this stage. As a as a Raptors fan, as a lot of you know, and it's really been a really impressive showing for the entire Pacers. Off the bench, a lot of people talk about. I like to talk about the bench a lot more. A lot of people don't, but you got guys like Andrew Nembhard. Excuse me, no, Andrew Neesmith started. He's another guy on my notes, but Andrew Nembhard. Anyway, he's huge, huge contribution to the team. I mean, he's a great playmaker, spacer, great backup for Halliburton. TJ McConnell as well. That man's a bucket. You got obviously Siakam having a couple on-off games, but it really just was an offensive and pace just masterclass from the Pacers. Tyrese Halliburton had some huge moments as well. Definitely proud of him. Great three-point shooting, especially down the stretch of Game 6 to try and close this game out. And hey, man, I'm looking forward to Knicks Pacers. Yeah, damn, all these second round series. Appreciate you guys for watching. Let me know what you think about the series that happened in the first round. This is the Eastern Conference video, so stay tuned for the West Conference video coming out soon. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.